students of Caddick Junior High, your ace reporters Millie and Tamia are here to bring you an exclusive for today's school news, and it's really big since, as I'm pretty sure you already know, tonight is the big night.
Hi. Hello to all the Lyoko freaks and fans of the world, et bonjour à tous to the Lyoko Files du Monde.
Hello, bonjour, hola. My name is Joseph Tafour, better known simply here on my channel as JT. What you're about to watch is a special project that I've been in the works for all this year to release. What began as a simple final exam for my intermediate production documentary course this past spring semester at my university grew into a personal passion project for me to do to release in commemoration of the 20th anniversary of Code Lyoko's debut in its home country of France. What you're about to watch is several compilations of interviews that I conducted with Code Lyoko fans just like me, sharing their first time discovering the show to what made it so special that made them become such devoted fans to the show and still are to this day. This is a special tribute that I've been ready to premiere to you all, and I'm so happy we've finally reached that point where we're finally premiering it today. But before I begin, I have a few thank yous I want to share. First, I would like to thank my professor, Professor Scott Thurman, who was my intermediate production documentary professor at my university. He is the big reason why I decided to take his course this past spring to help me learn and to build my confidence into creating this project that has finally reached its true form for release today. I wish thanks to him for teaching me several of the learning tactics when it comes to doing a good interview and to help me prepare to do this documentary that I'm doing for you all today. I definitely want to thank my interviewees, who all took time out of their busy lives to do an interview with me. To Waze the Lyoko Gem, Cameron Walk-On, Flower Fox, Belto Palermo, and Ashleen Gray. You all took time out of you guys' lives and busy schedules to do this interview with me and to share all of you guys' own personal experiences with Code Lyoko. You don't know, I am forever grateful and thankful for this opportunity to have interviewed you all. And thank you for sharing you guys' own personal stories and why you are so devoted to our fandom. Thank you so very much. The name Rhys Davies might be familiar to several Lyoko fans. You also might have better known him as TB3, a former administrator and mod of the LyokoFreak Forum back in the day. And of course, he's best known as the director of the legendary Code Lyoko documentary, Lyoko Decoded. Rhys, I've already said constantly to you, thank you for participating and being my first interviewee when this was just a final exam project for my intermediate production documentary class. I know you said in our interview that you don't really see yourself as a celebrity, but I can tell you deeply that your documentary, Lyoko Decoded, and your love and appreciation for the Code Lyoko fandom has always been beloved. We here in the Code Lyoko fandom support and forever are grateful for your Lyoko Decoded documentary. I'll also admit right now up front that Lyoko Decoded was a big influence for me to do this documentary. I am forever grateful that you thought up the idea to record and to give a visual remembrance to your lucky and grateful opportunity that you received, that you, your brother and friend received, where you guys had the honor and opportunity to go all the way to Paris, France, and literally have one-on-one interviews with the cast and crew of Code Lyoko I mean, that is such a great, awesome opportunity that any Lyoko fan would wish for. And the fact that you guys were able to make a creation of that to share with us fans, that's something we don't take for granted. Your documentary has stood the test of time and is still loved by our fandom to this day. And the fact that you decided to participate in this project when it was just my final project for my intermediate production course, and to share the stories and your own love for Code Lyoko, and to tell us what you've been doing since that documentary came out and your other endeavors and such, I can't thank you enough. I am so very honored, and I just want to tell you that we at Lyoko Fandom still love and appreciate you and everything you did with creating that documentary. Thank you very much for that, Rhys. Finally, I would like to end by saying that I dedicate this documentary to all of the Code Lyoko fans around the world. Whether you've been following the show just like me for the past 20 years, or if you're a new fan in our fandom, this documentary is for you all. I am so grateful to be a part of a fandom that has stood the test of time, and now, even 20 years later, is still stronger after all, still relevant, still loved, and still active. And for some fandoms, that's very rare. And for us to have a fandom that has lasted 20 years, I'm just extremely grateful. And finally, this is also a documentary that I dedicate to all of the cast, crew, from director Jerome Mukode, from the composers Herb Martin and Serge Tavichan, to the great voice actors from Sharon Mon, Matt Getsky, Mirabelle Kirkland, and the late Jodie Forrest, all the way to the 3 original creators of Code Lyoko, Thomas Roman, Tanya Palumbo, and the late Carlos De Valenti. This show, we still love it, and it's still cherished and is still being remembered 20 years later. You guys' legacy is still forever living on through us, and we thank you for creating such an amazing show that helped me pave the way for my love and appreciation for animation that is still strong to this day. And now, without further ado, without any more time wasted, I would like for you all to sit back, relax, and enjoy this great documentary, Stronger After All, 20 Years of Code Lyoko, a tribute to the fandom. I hope you enjoy.
What is your name and what do you do?
I am Waze the Lyoko Gem. I am the head writer of Project Eradication, and I also make a lot of memes in this community. And along with that, I do YouTube. Not mainly Code Lyoko content, but occasionally here and there. And yeah.
Flower Fox, that is the name I go by on the internet. I'm a voice actor for Project Eradication. I play Johnny and Ulrich.
My name is Roberto. I work for Ford right now. Prior to that, I was working in remote sales, and before that, I was a full-time high school theater student.
So my name is Béchamel Laurie. I'm French. I'm the Code Lyoko group admin on Facebook. I'm an artist. I write, I draw, I do a lot of things.
Well, my username on internet is CamRockOn. I am a Code Lyoko content YouTuber, I guess, or a YouTuber in general, but most of my content is Code Lyoko related.
Was the first time you discovered Code Lyoko?
I had to have discovered Code Lyoko back in 2004 when it came out in the United States. I was so young back then, but yeah.
I discovered it when it was airing on Cartoon Network back in the mid 2000s. I do have a very vivid scene of just tuning in, watching random I was just flipping channels and I come into the middle of an episode, which I now know it was Killer Music. And I remember seeing the scene where Yumi's in classroom and she gets a phone, she gets like the text that says odd. And then she just leaves the classroom. I remember thinking, oh, something odd's about to go down. Just very funny scene to remember out of context. That's my first introduction to this show. But I loved it back then and I still do today.
Oh boy, the lovely year of 2005.
I think I was 9 or 10. I was coming back from school and I get used to just like as a routine to watch it when I was coming back to school on my TV. And I enjoyed it so much. I started to read the book and stuff.
I'm not like most people. Well, I mean, I caught it a couple of times when it was airing. It's very rare when I caught it on Cartoon Network because of I just had bad timing. Like when I come home from school, I'll see SpongeBob, I'll see Fairy Oddparents, Jimmy Neutron, Danny Phantom, like all these other cartoons I've watched a lot. I guess because it airs more than Code Lyoko. Code Lyoko aired probably like 2 hours per day, and the times I know they switch times in different periods, but I guess I just caught the wrong times, and when I rarely do, I really loved it. And I remember there was this one memory I have. I was at my best friend's birthday party at like a pizza arcade place, and when it was time to eat the pizza, there was a TV in the corner, a small TV up in the corner, and it was playing Code Lyoko, and I was like so giddy. I mean, it's a great combo. You got pizza and Code Lyoko. I felt like it was my birthday. So then, I didn't catch the ending of it. I didn't know it ended. So I kind of forgot about it, And 3 years later, this is in 2010, my brother, the second youngest, comes to me and shows me, he has his phone and shows me this YouTube video of the intro, the theme song. And he's like, hey, do you remember this? And plays it. And I had like wind, like nostalgia wind blowing on my face. Like it was the memory has come back to me, and I was like, holy crap, yes. I literally, after I ran to my room and looked it up, and I binged it during that winter break in 2-week span. I did all 4 seasons. I had my mom's like old computer monitor and a wireless keyboard and mouse, so I just sat on my bed and just like did it from there. And there was this website that I watched it from. Yeah, it was like Code Lyoko episodes P. So, do you remember?
No.
Okay, but it's so nostalgic. I because it's not a thing anymore. I had to look at the like the archive site that like brings back websites, and it has pieces of it. And man, I miss it so much. But yeah, that was My actual first rewatch, or I wouldn't even say rewatch, it was like my first time watching the show fully from start to finish, and it was a blast. Like anytime I like come back to Code Lyoko, what's nostalgic is the 2010 when I first watched it, and not really the nostalgia from when it aired in the mid 2000s. But man, it just the environment, like it was snow. It was a snowy winter break too, and it was, man, season 4 specifically has the most nostalgia for me. I don't know why. I guess some of the soundtracks, because some of the OSC tracks in that season are really good, and it's a shame that we never got the whole full official OST. But that season 4 Caddick theme gets me every time.
About the show that made you a fan of it?
First thing that really stuck out to me for Code Lyoko is it had to be the contrast between the 2D and the 3D animation. I was like 6 years old, but Lyoko was a world that just intrigued me so much. I loved the action. I just loved seeing how different the two worlds were as a kid, and it was just really intriguing to me. And then as I grew older, I began to have more of an appreciation for the story, characters, and just the wonderful world that is Code Lyoko. And now, it's the wonderful community that continues to pump out amazing content.
Lot of things I like about this show. In general, it has a lot of really cool ideas that are very fun to just play around with. There's also, I love the characters. I love like how they play off each other. I like how they deal with situations or whatever Xana throws at them at the end throughout the day. I do like the mystery surrounding the supercomputer. Shame we never got like a full resolution to that, but there's this weird energy that Code Lyoko has that most shows don't have. It's like very unique to this specific show. there's a lot of different components I like, and I also like the presentation together. I acknowledge it's not a perfect show. It has problems. At its core, it's a show that I strongly resonate with.
Well, it was pretty much the start of a renaissance for me because I pretty much jumped up from watching baby shows, I guess, because I was still young. So that was my first preteen / adult show, and yeah, it was pretty much the start for me. And I remember always going out of my way to make sure that I caught all the new episodes. I was completely caught up all the way up until the moment they stopped airing it on Cartoon Network.
Things that caught me so much when I was young and I started to watch it, I think is creepiest side it have in a way, like the mystery and everything that goes around it. And I also like the fact that the friendship they had such a bond that you rarely have in your own life with people, and I enjoyed that so much.
Leaning towards the two worlds, because I was going to say pretty much everything, and I still would say that, but I guess the concept of 2D and 3D animation coming together was so neat, and you didn't get a lot of it. To me, that was the first. I know there was the old Reboot show, but this was like way ahead of its time for the 2000s, and I enjoyed every bit of it. I love the characters. I fell in love with the characters, the story, especially when you get to season 2. It's just very mysterious. The creatures, just Lyoko, everything about Lyoko was really fascinating. So yeah, pretty much it's just a perfect show to me. I mean, not every show is perfect, but it was there. It was up there.
Ever heard of a documentary called Lyoko Decoded?
Yes, I have. Actually, very recently, I was on my friend Cam Rockon's channel rewatching Lyoko Decoded. It was a fun time. I also watched Lyoko Decoded way back in the day. Like that had to have been Not when it came out, but when there was a period of time when I think I've always been into Code Lyoko, like throughout my life, but there have been periods of time where it hasn't been as big of a thing for me.
Same.
But there was there was a time in middle school where I was really like looking into more things with this show and looking and seeing. That had to have been 2011, 2012. And I remember that was around the time I was running into things like Garage Kids, Lesson Fonts. And I think along the way, I ran into Lyoko Decoded and watched all of it back then. And then, of course, recently, a couple months ago, and well, um, I think a month or two ago on Camrock On's channel.
Yeah,
So
Yeah, I watched it once a long time ago. I was browsing the internet and someone said, "Hey, someone interviewed Code Lyoko show staff," and I watched it. And then I watched it again recently with some friends.
I have.
you have.
Yeah, it was probably around 2013. That's when I started, I guess, using the internet more. That's when I had more accessibility to it. Because prior to that, I was always booted off of the family computer back when that was a thing.
Yeah.
So yeah, it was the same time that I actually watched the remaining 10 or so episodes that I missed, and I kind of got completely caught up all at the same time, 2012, 2013.
I don't think so, but on the past years, I got the chance to see a lot of documentary and stuff. So I don't recall that one, but I surely give it a look when I get the chance.
Oh, yes, I have. I don't know when the first time I ran into that. It had to been shortly after like 2010, obviously, when I watched the show for the fully for the first time. Because that came out like around season 4's premiere, I think. So I watched it like years later. But that's a very nostalgic piece of content. It was fun rewatching that with some like Lyoko buds. It was very nostalgic. I mean, Colton, you know what he said, like the fact that we have so many Lyoko fans from way back, and now there's the new generation of Lyoko fans that have been around for several years, rewatching this together. It's amazing. I've said it before, I'll say it again, but thank you to Rhys Davis for that amazing documentary. That's like the best gift to ever give any fan.
Okay, here we go. So nice to meet you. It's such an honor to do this. I've been waiting forever to do it. So, what is your name and what do you do?
My name is Rhys Davis, and I'm a self-employed author.
When did you for the first time you discovered Code Lyoko?
2004. I was in my last year of secondary school at the time and preparing to go to and I would be going to university in the coming year. This was around a period in time when I suddenly became a big fan of several major franchises, but I discovered none of them directly. I had been a fan of the British television show Thunderbirds. It's a classic. And in 2004, it got a live-action movie adaptation directed by Jonathan Frakes, who is best known as Commander Riker in Star Trek The Next Generation. Because of Thunderbirds, I got into Star Trek. At the same time, I was watching Teen Titans. And then one day, I was watching Teen Titans at home, and I didn't change the channel afterwards. And suddenly, bum 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 bum. That very first episode that I saw, if I recall, was Logbook, and it set up several things. First of all, it intrigued me.
You know, that actually sidetracks to my third question. What is it about the show that made you a fan of it?
I don't know if you're familiar. I mentioned Thunderbirds.
Yeah.
I don't know if you're familiar with that.
No.
It's a British television show from the 1960s that was animated using puppets and marionettes and very big model sets and incredible pyrotechnics and special effects stuff. And it's about a family called the Tracys. They are very wealthy and they live on an island in the South Pacific. And they are secretly the staff and operators of an organization called International Rescue. And underneath their island, in secret silos and hangars, they have an incredible fleet of rescue vehicles called the Thunderbirds. Whenever there is a disaster in the world, whenever a call for help goes out, International Rescue launches in their secret equipment in order to help. And so I was watching Code Lyoko, not entirely sure what was going on. And then they went to the factory for the first time. This secret hidden base underground. I think this feels very Thunderbirds, very Jerry Anderson. He was the creator of that show. And that got me intrigued. And then things got even wilder when at the very end of the episode, Jeremy said to Odd, "You ready to go back in time?" And he triggered the return to the past. Because the sci-fi franchise that I first fell in love with as a child was Back to the Future. So suddenly time travel was in the mix.
Time travel.
And the other big thing that seeing that episode as my first one influenced me was I was always rooting for Sissy. Because Logbook was, I think, one of the first episodes that not only focused on Sissy, but showed that she had a good side and a bad side.
Yeah.
And that when needed, she could actually be very brave and very heroic. And so I was one of those people who was convinced that the show's long-term plan was to have Sissy become one of the Lyoko warriors. And I was so disappointed when that did not happen.
What made you decide to become a mod of the LyokoFreak.com forum?
It just kind of happened.
Oh,
I became a member of LyokoFreak because I learned that it was where the voice actors hung out. Back in the day, the voice actors would frequently post on LyokoFreak, the English ones, and that was their connection to the fans, because they actually lived in Paris. And
yeah.
so they never really had access to the English dub or to the English fan community except via the internet. And I eventually managed, just without really trying, to become a big player in LyokoFreak. And when eventually they did a reshuffle of staff and brought on new mods, I put my name forward.
What made you decide to do the Lyoko Decoded documentary?
It was an opportunity. I said that I got chatting with the voice actors on LyokoFreak. Now, because I was in Britain and at the time was in university, I had access to the university post office, and I was also much closer to them than a lot of the fans in America in terms of geography. So when I learned that they'd never seen any of the episodes in English, I actually burnt the episodes to CD and posted them to them, to their home addresses.
That is so 2000s.
But which they gave to me, and they were incredibly grateful. And I recall at one point they got back and saying, "We got together and had our first ever watch party for the show. It was wonderful. Thank you."
So,
And at some point they actually threw out there, "If you ever are in Paris, let us know and we'll meet up."
how did you get access to interview the voice actors and director of Code Lyoko?
Like I said, the opportunity arose. After my first year at university, I was on a wild high. My first year at university was one of the happiest times of my life. And the result was that when the time came, the summer of 2005, 2006, I had the opportunity to go on holiday. For the first time, I had a car, I had some money, I had parents who were willing to subsidize a part of the trip. And so I said to the voice actors, "I'm thinking of taking a week's holiday in Paris, my first holiday as an independent young adult. Would you be up for meeting up?" And they said, "Absolutely, yes." And I then had the idea, well, maybe I could buy myself a video camera and interview them. And I'd already been, and Matt Gatesy, the voice of Odd, said that he did have a line of communication with Jérôme Mukade, the director. And we didn't have it confirmed at the time, but I actually recall that he said, "We will try and get you in touch." And yeah, it was arranged. And we were able to meet with Jérôme, and even better, Herman Martin and Serge Tavatian, the score composers, who I had interviewed via, who I'd done an interview with for LyokoFreak. Turns out that they were based in Brussels, and one of them was British and one of them was half British. And they said that, well, we'll come down on the TGV to Paris for the day so that we can meet with you too. But the real joy, the voice actors had agreed to meet us. They wanted to meet us. Jérôme Mukade wants to meet us at Moonscoop, and Herman Martin and Serge Tavatian were coming down. But the real joy was when, less than a week before the trip happened, we got an email. I think it was from Jodie Forrest, Sissy's voice actress, she's now passed away, rest in peace,
Yeah.
who said, "We've just received word that we're going to have a recording session during the time you're there. Do you want to come?" And we actually had to change our travel arrangements for that, because the day that they were inviting us to come to the studio was actually the day we were meant to leave Paris. We actually had ferry tickets booked for that day. So we rebooked the ferry tickets for the day after, but we realized, well, we don't have somewhere to stay that night. We've booked the hotel up to that day. And Jodie said, "Do you want to come stay with me and my husband for the night?" She and her husband, Robin Bullock, were incredible hosts. Like the night, they had a lovely house in a French village called Tripleval. And the night that we turned up, Jodie had already done like the voice recording, and she had left early once the voice acting was done in order to have the place set up for when we arrived. They put us up in a lovely room in a wonderful house, and they took us out for dinner. And when Jodie took us on a tour of her home, she took us into her office. And right there in front of her desk, pinned up on a notice board, was a piece of fan art I had done of Sissy that I'd sent to her as a gift.
Yeah.
So the Lyoko Decoded happened because I was going to Paris and I thought, well, let's record it, let's document it.
Yeah.
So I actually went and bought a video camera, and looking back, I wish I bought a different model, because one reason why Lyoko Decoded took so long to come out and was incomplete was that for whatever reason, the video camera I purchased was glitchy. A lot of the footage was corrupted. Jodie's interview that we did on the morning we left is borderline unusable because the audio was corrupted.
That leads into that could be also where my lead into my seventh question. Lyoko Decoded was originally going to be a 2-part documentary, and I decided, why did you decide to scrap part 2?
Well, part 1 itself was incredibly late coming out. I was overambitious. Looking back, I should have just released the interview footage raw. I should have just put the interviews out there for the fans. But the problem was that I got ambitious about doing this big dramatic documentary with narration and clever editing, and the result speaks for itself. I was able to get, I couldn't interview Jodie again because the dialogue was corrupted, but I was able to get her to help co-narrate as Sissy, which was wonderful. I got to write dialogue for Sissy, and I got to perform with her. And honestly, again, like I said, if I was doing it all over again, I would have just released the footage as it was, because by the time that it actually did come out, Code Lyoko season 4 was already happening. A lot of the surprises and teases that the interviews revealed had already come to pass, and the show was already past its peak and beginning to wane. Unfortunately, I recorded the footage between my first and second year of university, and the actual thing was released in my 3rd year. It took that long.
Now we have a big question here. What is your opinion on the 2013 sequel, Code Lyoko Evolution?
Ooh, that's a spicy question. Probably because I have a very unique take in where, well, I've occasionally said this on Twitter as well, but I think Code Lyoko Evolution, for the most part, is a pretty I think we as a community need to stop pretending it's Dragon Ball Evolution. It is not that bad.
That's a bit
at the same time.
It's not that awful. I mean,
Yeah.
It's not great, but it's not that extremely terrible.
It's not great either. I think at worst. Go ahead. Sorry.
No, you.
Okay. No, I was gonna say at worst, Code Lyoko Evolution is it is worse because it's a sequel. I completely agree with that. But I also feel that at the end of the day, the show ranges from I'd say that the show itself is pretty mediocre to okay mediocre at worst, okay at best, if that makes sense. Where I don't know, I think it raises some interesting questions with Professor Tyrone, how Xana came back, and things like that. But at the same time, I do agree that the live action hurts the show. I agree that things like the specters walking around menacingly is super boring.
Yeah.
Xana's weak, things like that. Yeah, I agree with that. But I also feel that, I don't know, Evolution as a show also, I liked seeing things like Caddick in live action, despite everything. I thought a lot of the actors did a decent job at what they were trying to do, especially the likes of Gulliver, who was odd, was wonderful.
Yeah.
Everybody knows Bastian Feliz as Jim was great.
He
I
was
I
great
do
as
have some opinions on the character and where his writing more than anything, but for what he was given, he did a really nice job.
He did do a solid job, Jim.
Yeah, everybody loves Quentin Marabet as Ulrich. It's like, yeah, they were okay. It's Evolution is something that could be better and did not quite live up to the hype. But for
Yeah.
what it is, I think it's okay. It is a serviceable sequel, as well as, like, if you really really want more Code Lyoko content, then yeah, Evolution is a serviceable sequel. You'll so long as you're able to take, like, okay, this is very different, um different, then yeah. But at the same time, it has its faults, and I'm not denying them at all. But I don't know. I think we're a little hard on Evolution. I think mediocre at worst, okay at best.
My opinion on Code Lyoko Evolution is that it's overhated. It's at best it's mid. It's not great. I get where the anger comes from, because it's like we wanted a continuation of Code Lyoko and it didn't quite deliver, but it has a lot of interesting aspects I think a lot of people overlook. It has like the best William character writing the entire franchise has to offer. I also really like Laura's potential. How they used her isn't great, but I think she has potential to add more dynamics to the Warriors and like have a fun role to play. The whole mystery, the Cortex is cool. They add more to the mystery of like Anthea, who like existed but in the original show, but we never found out what happened to her. Now we kind of have an idea, and it's interesting. Tyrone as has his own role to play, as well as adding on to Hopper's backstory of being his former lab assistant from Project Carthage days. So, but Evolution has its pitfalls. It has like I feel like the part of what makes the original show great is the balance it does between the school life and the virtual life. And Evolution focuses primarily heavier on the virtual life, and the school life kind of takes backseat. And it also, what school life we get plays more like a sitcom than well, I guess the other show is kind of a sitcom, but it had more charm to it. It's also live action, so it's a harder sell. It has writing problems. I could go on and on about Evolution, but it's a mixed bag overall. It has some good ideas, and it also has some really clunky execution in other areas. Overhated, mid at best.
So if you look at it in isolation, I do think that it's a good show overall. Fortunately, as someone that has at this point rewatched the entire series 7 times over in chronological order by episode, the canon of Evolution conflicts with the canon of the original series a lot for me. And a lot of the concepts that exist in that show, I think, were great. And I think if executed properly and executed correctly, would have been great. It's just there are a lot of glaring issues. I mean, that's one of the reasons why the community as a whole overall isn't the biggest fan of it. I know that there are select pockets. I mean, I still, every time they uploaded on the YouTube channel, I still tuned in and watched it because, again, it's material that we hadn't seen brand new for at least 5 years or so at that point.
Yeah.
And then when they released the English dub, as jarring as it was for the lips to not match on human actors, I still tuned in and watched that. So I still respect the material enough. I still tuned into it because, again, it's the same core group of people and the story somewhat continues. It's just there there were too many things that in my head they were just, I wasn't sure why they took it in that direction.
I never watch it. I know everything about it because, well, I have to as being an admin, and because, well, I documented myself, but I don't want to watch it because I think they could have done something great with a better budget. Like, but no, it's just they kind of ruined the show to me with that. And the thing is, they could have get going with the original show. The thing is that they waited for too long. And the fan get kind of, I mean, they grow up basically. So they started to think about making a new thing, like making evolution. And I don't know, something just broke when they did that. I mean, that's my opinion.
Or I thought evolution was trash. I mean, this was when I was young. I was in high school, and after getting what I was used to, I was like, "What is this? Am I allowed to cuss?"
That's fine. I really don't care.
What is this shit? I just making sure. But I never really watched it until 2020. The Project Eradication was having a rewatch, and we actually decided to watch Evolution. That was my first full watch of that season. It's decent at best. It is not the worst. It's not. I wouldn't say it's bad. It's not good either, but there's a lot of things to appreciate from it. There's a lot of like small references that I really appreciate that the writers it shocked me with, because the writing was kind of like the biggest thing. There's the acting, but like I'm not gonna really fault that much for the acting, because a lot of them, I think it was their first gig, and it's the writing that actually like comes first before the acting anyways. So you could just kind of tell that, no like offense or anything, but there's a lot of things that you can tell that the writers of Evolution didn't know the full like knowledge and history of Code Lyoko, but somehow they still like they probably watched a couple episodes because there was those little references that I really liked. So I was like, okay, you have these things, but you messed this up. But no, there was a really lot of there were some good concepts. Evolution had some great concepts actually, that it just wasn't executed well. Like the concept of Tyrone as a new antagonist was a really cool idea. They kind of, he was kind of a nitwit, but but he could have been done better. Laura was a really good character to add into the mix. I know people hate Laura a lot, but I could go on and on about yeah. Did you raise your hand?
Yeah, I she's not. I mean, she's not the worst supporting character.
It could have done like with Tyrone and other concepts. Like they could have written her a lot better.
Yes,
because I kind of want to like jump on like Flowers. Like Flower brought up like William's main purpose in the original was for what is it? Well, to be Xana's general, and to be like try to interfere with Auric and Yumi. Well, I kind of wanted to say that with Laura was the reason Laura was here was just to do the same thing with Aelita and Jeremy. I feel like that was it, because then they just get rid of her like she never existed. Like, what was the point? You kind of make this character, put him in the story, and then you just it's nothing. It just I don't understand it. I was like, what's the point? So, and that's why I feel like a lot of people really hate her, because she just came in and like messed stuff up and left. But
yeah, she's like Lila, Rosie, and Miraculous. no point at all.
Yeah. So yeah, it's good. It's decent at best. I now when I see people saying it's trash, I'm a little triggered. I'm like, all right, listen.
Mixed bag. I thought the idea was bold. I was glad that they wanted to try and do a follow-up. And the CGI sequences really showed an evolution. It was also very bold of them to bring William in as a full-time protagonist. And the idea that they were potentially fighting humans was very intriguing. I love the new vehicle like the Mega Tank. I love that they kept the Skid Bladnir. I think what caused that to fall apart was the idea that they thought, if we can do it live action, we could sell it like Sentai is sold as Power Rangers. Like, we could sell the show to other countries and they could film their own live action segments.
No.
And yeah.
No, it was-
And the problem was that having to do it in live action meant that what you could do in the real world scenes in Caddick immediately became limited by budget, by what special effects could pull off. That said, I remain to this day very impressed with the actors that they hired. They were all on point. I think maybe Aelita felt a bit more punk and acerbic. I also recall that the actor playing Jim was fantastic.
What have you done since you've made this documentary, Lyoko Decoded?
I have bounced around a fair bit from job to job. The problem was I graduated university just as the 2008 credit crunch hit, and a lot of my opportunities vanished. I was in part-time job for a lot of the time. For 3 years, I was working in my local cinema. My town got its first multi-screen cinema, and I was among the first people hired there. For 3 years, I was there from before opening night, and that was a fun job. There were some good times, there were some bad times, but it was always like front of house, low paying. I then got the best job I've ever had. It was for 16 months with the Welsh government.
Whoa.
I am Welsh.
Yeah.
I'm British and Welsh. I got a job with the Welsh government working as a cartographer in their helping to draw up maps of farms as part of a farming subsidy program. And for that job, I moved to the town where I currently live. However, it only lasted for 16 months, and they didn't have a rehire policy. They were literally employing people temporarily, employing them for as long as they could, and then the second they reached the point where they became entitled to a pay raise, your contract ended and you weren't rehired. It was a consequence of the austerity budget.
Wow, that's just...
Since then, I have to say I have been unemployed. But the benefits are that I was able to start writing again, and now I've got an ebook to my name. I've got an award-winning atlas published.
Firefox pointed out Project Eradication. Can you kind of give a brief explanation what that is?
Oh, yeah, I'm sorry. It's a fan-made continuation it's supposed to take place after Evolution because people don't like hearing it. Evolution is canon, so we're just gonna fix. Part of Eradication's goal is to fill in all the plot holes from both Evolution and the original show, give it that Code Lyoko feel. The project's been around since 2016, shortly after the ending of there was another project that we were a part of that we left and joined, that I'm not going to mention. You might know, but right now we're in the process of changing directions for the project. It's still going to be a continuation. We'll be announcing that soon if we do change direction, but we'll announce if we do or not. So there's either way there will be an announcement soon.
Yeah. Shows do you think reach the same kind of caliber as Code Lyoko? What modern animated shows can you think of that you've watched, that you've seen? Like, I have my own little criteria called the Code Lyoko level quality. What do you see as a show kind of living to that state?
Ooh, that is a really good question. Sorry, I love that question. What do I think just speaks out to me as much as Code Lyoko did?
Yeah, what do you see gives you a similar reaction of being very different, having a special spark to it that reminisces you back to the days of Code Lyoko? Because I've had that a lot.
Okay. Well, I guess this goes without saying. Technically, it's not a modern show, but Steven Universe definitely hit that for me.
Same.
Yeah, it was like, oh man, it reminded me a lot of what it was like to get into Code Lyoko. Well, oh god, well, I have okay, I can say this. Well, I have the recent seasons of it haven't been as good as it once was, but
Sorry about
Miraculous
Miraculous,
Ladybug
aren't
was
you? I knew it.
yeah. Yeah. When I was watching Miraculous for the first time, I was sitting there. I'm just like, man, this feels a lot. Like, I didn't realize it immediately, but it's just like, man, this really feels like Code Lyoko, and I loved that about it.
Same.
To me, it really did feel like to me at the time when I was watching Miraculous for the first time, it felt like it really did feel like the not quite the second coming, but the spiritual successor. That's the words I was looking for to Code Lyoko.
Yeah.
And yeah,
I've dubbed it Code Lyoko's formula on steroids.
Oh, definitely, definitely.
Because I'm a part of your Discord, there's another show I think you could agree is also Code Lyoko level quality. Infinity Train.
Yes, Infinity Train. God, Infinity Train was wonderful and definitely fits that feeling. Definitely, especially when it comes to for Infinity Train, especially when it comes to just the characters and their interactions. That definitely makes me feel, oh yeah, Code Lyoko, the Lyoko Warriors, that sort of thing. So yeah, definitely.
Yes, that show. Man, that show. I.
It deserved better.
It got it.
It deserved
I pointed out it is the most mismanaged, misguided, mishandled Cartoon Network show ever. It still bothers me.
I can agree with that.
It's
the only thing I would say maybe competes with that is Symbiotic Titan, but otherwise I agree.
Yeah, Symbiotic Titan got screwed. Young Justice as well.
Yeah.
I saw during the presentation for that a Summer Camp Island poster, so maybe a sign they're going to put it back when it launches. I highly doubt it, but I don't trust.
Here's hoping.
Yeah, well, I don't trust David Zaslav. Yeah.
David Zaslav.
Boo! You stink!
I think it's going to go on for a long time. I hope so.
Wait, remember Code Lyoko? This, you know, the character with the big forehead from Code Lyoko, that one. Yumi, that's right. Is Yumi goth?
I have a quick question for you. Have you ever heard of the French animated show Code Lyoko?
Yeah. Watched it all the time as a kid.
Oh, favorite character?
Favorite character? What was the guy's... what was his name? I forget his...
Yellow hair?
No, short black hair.
Ulrich?
Yeah.
Yo!
Yes, that's who it was.
Awesome.
What is your opinion on the show? Still having a big fan base and stuff 20 years later?
Is genuinely... This fandom is actually, like... We as a community, honestly really should not exist. And I mean that in the nicest way possible. I realize how bad that sounds, but like, what's it? Code Lyoko is a weird show in terms of like public reception because it is simultaneously incredibly popular and incredibly niche at the same time. It's very, very strange. Like, especially when you ask the average Joe about Code Lyoko, you'll either get, oh yeah, I loved the show, or oh, God, I hated Code Lyoko, and very few in between, or the people who have just not heard of it. Like man. And it's because of that like this fandom is this fandom for this show is just kind of insane because of that. Because this is a show that hasn't existed in a long time and has nothing really going for it right now in the modern day. Yet this fandom still stands incredibly strong. And I admire the heck out of that. I think it is so cool that we have people who have been with this show for so long that have continued to just be there like, yeah, Code Lyoko is great. Code Lyoko is awesome. And continuing to make content for a show that just hasn't really had much to do in the public consciousness in a while yet. Code Lyoko fans have been killing it, and I think that's just cool as hell, genuinely. So yeah. Yeah, I think it's awesome that we're still here 20 years later, and here's to another 20. Whether we get anything in the future or not, I'm really excited to see what this fandom can do. So yeah.
That's amazing. I have the opinion that a show does not die until people stop talking about it, and people are still talking about it to this day. I see the subreddit gets posts on the daily. People are still chatting on. People are still writing their own like AUs and continuations and like just random drabbles. It is fantastic. And of course, all the fan projects that are floating around out there. It is just incredible that it feels like the fandom grew up in a way, but they never fully let go, right? They say, oh, you need to let go of your child, but we didn't. We still love this silly little mid-2000s cartoon about some kids in way over their heads like 20 years later as adults, like still talking about it and making memes. And I just think it's wonderful.
Oh, it's completely unsurprising to me. I mean, it's a great show. It's always been a great show. Definitely original. It was way ahead of its time in every sense of the way. I feel like you could tune into it on any episode at any time, and if you're a lifelong fan of it, you'll be able to jump right in. If you're brand new to it, it'll be an interesting concept for someone to just jump right into. I know plenty of people, they talk about the 2D to 3D swaps in the earlier seasons were very jarring for them, which, I mean, granted, for the technology that existed at the time, it was still very good. And again, like I said, they were pushing the needle forward as much as possible. And I mean, the main elements of what makes Code Lyoko so great is, one, the story. The characters are great. And I think the fan base is gonna continue to grow as more and more years pass, and the core group of people that have stuck with it all this time, they're definitely going to be the loudest and proudest supporters of it. I mean, I've only seen more and more fan projects pop up in the past couple of years, many of which never took off the ground. I tried to be a part of as many of those as possible, some of which have, and I'm still a part of, and I love to be a part of it. Yeah, I mean, the love for the series, I don't think, has ever diminished one bit, regardless of how much time has passed since it's been really off the air, since the original closing date.
That's something that's really awesome with Code Lyoko, is that even, I mean, there is plenty of people just like me. Some people discover it with being an adult, but most of them were a child when it appeared on TV. And the thing is that it never fade away, like the love we all have for the show. I mean, I'm talking about the people of the group, but plenty of people probably around the world that we don't know yet still love the show, and that's really awesome. I think that's something really rare, because I mean, I never heard the same thing going for another show. So that's really awesome to see people just always getting excited and stuff. And I met plenty of great people from all around the world because of the show. So that's awesome.
It's amazing. It's unbelievable. It's for a show like Code Lyoko, you go to anyone random. It's like win the lottery. When you go out and ask someone in public, hey, do you know Code Lyoko? They're gonna be like, Coda, what? They're not gonna know. So I feel like throughout the years, especially I want to say since it got put back on Netflix, because that really boosted it up. And but like even without that, like just people like on Twitter, Tumblr, Reddit posting art and just fan made content. It can be, you know, music, writing. It is crazy how much I'm seeing Code Lyoko, especially I want to say specifically on Twitter these days. When someone posts a tweet of Code Lyoko art, it blows the hell up. It's crazy because I'll look at these people's other like posts of fan art, and Code Lyoko's the biggest one. It is so crazy to me. Like you'll have probably fan art of Miraculous, or I don't know, maybe an older show, but when I see them, they use that hashtag Code Lyoko or just mentioning Code Lyoko, it blows up, and it's really fun and cool to see. It makes me feel like this community has a huge fan base. It isn't. I feel like I still feel like it's bigger than what we think, but it definitely feels bigger than what it actually is compared to, like, I don't know, Avatar: The Last Airbender fandom, you know, or Miraculous too. So it's really amazing.
I am overjoyed. Lyoko is something incredibly special to me. It was that golden period from when I discovered the show to when we reached the climax of season 2 and we went into season 3, and there was all this excitement and hope and possibility about where the show could go, the epic scale it was developing. It was a special show. This was a show that was intended for a young adult audience, but which, even though its humor was often cheesy, it never pulled its punches about combining the fantastical with mundane things that matter so much to children. You saw Yumi struggling with her family, which had, you know, a family which often seemed on the verge of falling apart. You saw Jeremy and Aelita developing as a young romance. You saw Ulrich struggling to earn the respect of his father. These were all long, ongoing relationships. Also, you had this amazing supporting cast. I don't just mean Sissy and William and Millie and Tamia, who were adorable. I mean, like, all of the background characters in Caddick, all of whom had a name, and occasionally they got some personality development.
Ah, God. What do I have to say about this show after 20 years? Here we are going far, everybody. God. Happy 20th anniversary. This show is a show that means a lot to me, and I'm sure it means a lot to the rest of you as well. I mean, for a lot of us in this fandom, it was there when we were all so young. A lot of us were in elementary or primary school or middle school and high school when it came out. Yeah, of course the show had older fans, but like for a lot of us here in this community, it's something that has kind of always been with us. We've grown and changed with Code Lyoko, and I think that's really cool. For it to still speak to us as much as it has after all this time, I think that's great, and it's a show that deserves a lot of love and a lot of the continued support of this wonderful, wonderful fandom. Everybody's amazing here, and I really, really love this show, and so for it to hit 20 years is just amazing. God, after so long, like with Code Lyoko, we've all come so far, and once again, here we are going far, and here's to hoping that maybe we get something in the future. I'd really love to see this show return in some way. I think after 20 years especially, it's time for something new. So, yeah.
Lyoko, I feel like Lyoko will never die. Will never truly die. Hopper's legacy, for better or worse, will always linger, and there will always be the Eye of Xana watching over us. But we, you know, if we work, we're stronger after all, and we can make a world without danger.
For keeping the show alive after all these years. I know the Netflix petition was something that was going for such a long time, and then it finally made its way up there, and that's because of the love we have for the show. Let's just continue up with it. I long for the day that we see a proper continuation of it in the original style, just updated, I guess would be the best word to use for it. Yeah, and you know, keep putting your work out there. There are plenty of fan stories that are out there now. There's plenty of animations that are out there right now. Just keep the show alive in our hearts. Keep presenting your love for it, and I have no doubts that one day we'll see something else crop up from it.
Well, just that I enjoy to interact with all of you, and I enjoy everything that you guys bring to the group, and still make Code Lyoko live in a way. And I really hope one day you'll be back, but on a really good way. Just not much.
Happy 20th anniversary to the show, to the curators, Thomas and Tanya, to all the fans. All the creators out there. This show, I would say pretty much 99% of the fans of the show are a writer, a musician, an animator because of Code Lyoko, and I've gotten that before. I get that all the time. All my friends are in the same exact boat. That's how amazing the show has inspired us, and we're all going to do great things. Put your head into it. You will, you work hard, keep your mind on, you can do anything you set your mind to. You hear that a lot, but it's certainly true, and that's what I'm currently doing right now, so.
OJT, it's me, Ezra Weiss, the voice director of Miraculous Ladybug, and I am here as part of this amazing project to wish all of the fans of the great animated series Code Lyoko a happy 20th anniversary. I'm so happy you're being a part of this project, and I get to be included in all of these great well wishes and congratulations. 20 years, that's building a very big fandom for Code Lyoko. So JT, thank you so much for reaching out to include me in this amazing project that you are doing to celebrate the anniversary of Code Lyoko. So pound it from the voice director of Miraculous Ladybug. Bye!
Hey, TBC here, aka the Virtual Celebrity. Just wanted to wish everyone in the Code Lyoko fandom a happy 20th anniversary. I promise to get to this show someday, eventually. Happy anniversary!
Guys, it's the fans that made the show so beloved. Of course, it was the people who made the show and the voice actors who gave life to the characters that got it off the ground. But the fact that Lyoko is still around and still in the public consciousness is because of the fans who love it. And remember, things might be tough, things might get hard, you might encounter obstacles and hardships along the way, but if we all keep persevering and working together, we might indeed someday see a world without danger.